Guys, it is Sunday right now, and for this Friday, for this upcoming Friday, we are reading Julius Caesar, for ShakeTube 2017. Oh, you can see Bessie with her cone on. She just got fixed on Thursday. Yeah, it's only for a week though. I know it's very sad, but she'll be out of it soon, and she will be a new cat. Here to talk about Julius Caesar. I had high expectations for this because it was another history/tragedy play, and I have always had a bit of a weakness for historically based historical. Well, I haven't read much historical fiction, but I've always loved movies based on history. You know, I love Lawrence of Arabia and Kingdom of Heaven, and others. So I had high expectations for this, and I did like it. But for anyone who doesn't know, Julius Caesar is about Brutus and Casius's and other senators' conspiracy to assassinate Julius Caesar because they are afraid that Julius Caesar is gaining too much power and is going to become a dictator, and they sort of, at least they say they do it to preserve the Roman Republic. And then in the wake of that, Mark Antony, who is a friend of Julius Caesar, kind of comes to take revenge, and there's a battle between them, and of course Brutus and Casius both end up dead. Like I said, I did enjoy this. I found that more than the plays we've read up to now. I don't know if more so than Romeo and Juliet, but definitely more than Richard III or The Taming of the Shrew. I started finding the language to be more complex, and perhaps to be not necessarily that difficult, but I did find that more often while reading this play, I had to stop and just kind of absorb what I just read for a second to really get what a person was saying. Just because the language is becoming more complex, I think. Which I enjoyed actually. Sometimes, if I'm reading poetry and the poetry is too easy to understand, it actually is a bit of an anticlimax. I still enjoyed it. I'm just, like my other videos, I'm just gonna talk about some things that struck me. Okay, maybe I should say that, when I finished this play, I found myself thinking, okay, I would love to see a movie of this or a production of it or what have you. I feel like it would be much better in production than it was reading it. Which is probably true of most of Shakespeare's plays, but like, for example, with Richard III and Romeo and Juliet, I enjoyed them thoroughly just reading them. But for this one, obviously I enjoyed it, but I thought I would probably enjoy it more in production. So, just that note, I don't really know of any famous ones, so if anyone does, I'd love to hear about them. So, one thing that I found interesting is, Brutus is sort of he's a friend of Julius Caesar, a close friend, and so he is given in this play as sort of the one guy who really is assassinating Caesar for the good of the Republic and not for his own gain. Now, something I found interesting in his approach was that he implores the other senators at one point not to, mutilate Caesar's body. You know, he was like, oh, well, if we're going to do it, we'll at least do it nobly and not, be savages about it and tear his body apart. But, that made me think, does not doing something like that make the crime any less criminal? It seemed like a cheap way for him to feel less guilty about what he's doing. Which, I mean, honestly, I feel like that's common. I feel like that's very relatable. I think we all kind of do things that we know are wrong and do these little other things that we think should make it less bad, but really we're still doing the same thing. Brutus is still murdering his friend. Not mutilating the body doesn't make him mean that he did any less murdering. So I don't know, that crossed my mind. I'm not sure what to make of that thought, but I thought it was an interesting note. So, what else do I have written down here? Oh, so the mob, the like Roman crowd, I was so surprised by how easily swayed they were by both sides. You know, one second Brutus is up there telling them, oh yeah, Caesar was going to be a dictator, we were doing this for the good of the Republic, and they're all like, awesome, why don't you be Caesar, Brutus? Then Brutus is like, no, and then Antony comes up, and he says his speech about how Brutus and the others murdered Caesar, and that Caesar had made the people of Rome the new Caesars or whatever, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, death to Brutus and Casius, and, you know, I was so, I don't know, it's just like, it kind of reminds me of how quickly the public can switch opinions nowadays still. You know, in some ways we haven't changed that much, but I'm not saying that it's an entire equivalence, but it did make me think about it. But Brutus, at one point, says something interesting to Cassius early in the play. It's in Act 1, Scene 2. And he says to Cassius, no, Cassius, for the eye sees not itself but by reflection, by some other things. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to point out, how often we don't necessarily know ourselves that well. We're sort of informed about ourselves by other people. You know, I find this all the time. Like, you know, honestly, I hadn't thought about myself as a bookworm or an egghead until people started calling me that, you know, until they realized I'd talked about the 10th book I'd read for the, you know, 5th time that evening or something. We are informed about ourselves a lot by the other people we know. You know, and Cassius clearly kind of exploits that to manipulate Brutus into helping him to murder Caesar, and I thought that was really interesting. You know, even though it's not bad to be informed by yourself from other people, but you know, when someone like Cassius comes along, it can be bad for you, I guess. So I found that really interesting. So I want to read one passage that I really liked. It's in Act 3, Scene 1, when I think Brutus and the other senators have just convinced Antony to speak at Caesar's funeral, have told him their motive for murdering Caesar and things like that, but Brutus and the other senators leave the stage, and Antony gives this little soliloquy before a servant of Octavius enters. So, here we go. "Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times. Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. Over thy wounds now I do prophesy, which like dumb mouths do ope their ruby lips to beg the voice and utterance of my tongue. A curse shall light upon the limbs of men. Domestic fury and fierce civil strife shall cumber all the parts of Italy. Blood and destruction shall be so in use, and dreadful objects so familiar that mothers shall but smile when they behold that their infants quartered with the hands of war, all pity choked with the custom of fell deeds. And Caesar's spirit, ranging for revenge, with Ate by his side, come hot from hell, shall in these confines with a monarch's voice cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war. That this foul deed shall smell above the earth, with carrion men groaning for burial." I just thought that was really badass. I love the line, "Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war." That's just so cool. I can't wait to see an actor deliver that. But yeah, so I've read Julius Caesar on Sunday. Oh no, I finished it actually on Thursday, and then I read Harold Bloom's commentary and the essay in here on Friday, and then and I haven't started A Midsummer Night's Dream yet. This week between now and sometime, A Midsummer Night's Dream is short, and I'm a week ahead in terms of play, so I'm gonna take this week off from reading Shakespeare and read some other things. Thank you guys. Anyway, thank you guys. Bye.